Hey everyone, we're back for another Terraria news video, so as always, let's jump into it. Now the main focus of today's video is Skyblock. We mentioned in a previous video that Red was toying with the idea of making a Skyblock seed in 1.4.5, and immediately there was a bunch of forum suggestion threads about what this seed could look like, with Red even responding to one. Well, it looks like development of the seed has already begun, and it turns out that the thing Red and Senex were testing last weekend was in fact Skyblock. Red put up a status that said, have been running through the Skyblock seed with Senex for the past week. And included was an image of their base, which actually contains quite a few spoilers. First off, on the right is a health fountain from Dead Cells. Now, if you haven't played the game yet, at the end of a stage, you can actually use this to refill your health flask. Now, I'm not too sure how that's going to work in Terraria, since health potions are actually crafted, but you can see it has actually given the player a buff, which you can see underneath the hotbar. In the player's inventory, you can see that the ale tosser has been slightly reworked, as it now has an ammo count. And with it getting a rework, I do wonder, is it still going to be a weapon that drops from the tavern keep, or are they going to make it a weapon that's purchasable? Also in the night sky, you can see that meteor ore is falling from the sky. It even says in the bottom left, a meteor shower is happening. And you can see on the right hand side that you can actually pick up the ore that's falling down as well. Now I imagine the reason this was implemented in the first place is because when you're playing Skyblock, it's not exactly like you've got ideal spawning conditions for a meteorite. So maybe once a certain criteria has been met, like the Brain of Cthulhu or the Eater of Worlds, you have a random chance of this occurring. And I wonder if this is maybe just a seed thing, or it's something that can happen in a normal playthrough. Under the post, Red actually commented, it's been fun tackling the issues of what needs to be done to make this a viable playthrough. Red also put up a second post that said, work smarter, not harder, alongside this spoiler for Terraria 1.4.5, which contains a brand new item called the Stress Ball. So as the item description says, it enables automatic attacks when not moving and does not function when the inventory is open. Oh, and you can also see that the ale is in the ammo section of the player's inventory as well. Red also said, I got the idea when I was looking for something heavy to put on my mouse button, which is where I actually imagine the item name Stress Ball came from. Someone asked on Twitter, what does automatic attacks mean? And Red responded, I'll work on the tooltip wording to make it more clear. You will use your weapon/tool without touching any input devices. Useful for AFK farming. Now this is clearly another addition to make Skyblock easier, as Skyblock can often be quite grindy and it involves a lot of just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. Someone also asked, is that a new hairstyle? And Red responded, benefits of being CEO. I had my own personal hairstyle added. Someone asked, since when did cloud platforms exist? And Red responded, about 4 days ago. After Red's post, Senex actually tweeted out, it's getting really hard not to hype the update. Red did not want to hype. And it's funny because at the start of the year, when I started making my videos about 1.4.5, I kept saying, don't get too hyped up. This is a smaller update. They let that be known before the update even entered development. But clearly now, and they can't hide it, this update is bigger in scope than they originally intended. And for me, that's when I get most excited. If this is anything like 1.4.4, we have another banger on our hands. Now, Red actually responded to that tweet and said, we have some bugs to work out. I've never gotten a gnome banner before. But one thing I also noticed is that underneath the buff icon for the fire imps, it now tells you how many summons you have active. Before we continue, 65% of people that watch these videos are not actually subscribed, and I want to convince you otherwise. By subscribing to the channel, it means that you can be kept up to date with all things Terraria. I don't make a ton of videos, I won't flood your homepage, but every once in a while, you'll see a little Terraria news video and you'll be like, okay, I'm glad I did this. We are on our way to 2 million subscribers, which has never been done by a Terraria channel before, and if you want to help make that a reality, click subscribe. Alright, so moving on, somebody wrote a suggestion that said, I know 5 silver isn't a lot, but when you want to make worldwide teleporters or do a lot of wiring, the cost adds up. Essentially asking if they can change the price of wires, and Red actually responded, I'll reassess this soon. Next up, somebody made a suggestion about changing the spawn rates of sharks, which is something I actually agree with. Whenever I want to make hunter potions, I can never find a shark. Red actually responded to this and said, I'll have a look at their spawn rates. But somebody did leave a really good suggestion that I quite liked. Somebody wrote, maybe if we pour some chum into the water during the day outside of a blood moon, it could drastically increase the amount of sharks that can spawn. Next up, somebody wrote to Red and said, I wanted to ask about kites. The amount of detail that was poured into these items shows a great deal of love, and the wind mechanic is a truly appreciative feature. They leave a deep yearning for wishing them to be displayed. And Red responded, I know, it would be awesome. I'll bring it up with the team again. There are some issues that we have to get around though, so don't get your hopes up. Next up, Red tweeted out, having a bad day, it could be worse. And included is a spoiler that kind of speaks for itself, but I actually love it. So the file name for this is actually Angry Critters. You can see at the end that the squirrel attacks the player. Now, is that because of what dropped on the player's head? I don't think so. I do wonder if maybe that heinous seed that Red was cooking up and talking about last week is actually a seed where everything is angry and everything wants to kill you. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is new. I haven't had the chance to check this before recording, but I did notice around those blades of grass, there seems to be these little critters that are hovering around. I don't know if that's been in the game before this update, but it's a really nice little ambient feature. Senex responded to this and said, when he tells you he's been hard at work in the basement, with Red saying, someone has to deliver the quality content everyone has come to expect from us. Someone asked, is this more common with bad luck? And Red responded, this only happens to characters with bad luck or characters named Senex or C-Blocks. Now, if it makes it through to the final release of 1.4.5, this is going to be a really cool little Easter egg that they've snuck in. But I don't know, if I was Senex, I'm not too sure I would let that one happen. Now, this next one is one I'm not too sure about. Red put up a status that said, finally, an item that is perfectly balanced. And you can see in this video that there's been a slight reworking to the zombie arm. Now, when you swing it, a bunch of zombie gore flings out from the sword. But I'll be real, I can't really tell if this is something that they're actually wanting to implement in the update, or this is just something that Red's just made for the hell of it. I mean, I quite like the gore that's flinging out. I think it looks quite cool, but I don't know if they'll actually go ahead with this one. What are your thoughts on this? Leave me a comment down below. And then the final thing we have to talk about today, Red put up a status that said it's time to pay your taxes. And included is a reworking of the classy cane, which, if you don't know, is the weapon that drops from the tax collector. So it looks like now when you use the weapon to slap around an enemy, this time it's the guide. I imagine the player's wearing a guide voodoo doll. You can see that a bunch of coins erupt from the enemy, kind of like when you fight a golden slime, but you can see that the player is picking up currency as they go along, beating up this guide. Now, like most spoilers, I imagine this hasn't been balanced yet, but I imagine if you did this same thing in the same room as the nurse could probably heal the guide faster than you could kill the guide, and then you have an infinite AFK money farm. Alright, so that does it for today. Thank you all for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.